Now, it would have been the perfect end to the perfect week, but it wasn't to be at Molineux. The most bizarre handball that you'll ever see from Che Adams denied Saints a point as Wolves went on to win 1-0. Glen, going to start with you this week. How do you see the game yesterday? Big chance missed against a team that we should be beating?
It's the same every year, isn't it? I think we mentioned it last week that every time we go out there, we look at their team and think, well, that's not that special on paper. We should be able to get something there, and we never do. It's, frustration seems to be the word that's come out lots and lots of times in all the interviews that I've seen, both with Ralph and certain players. And that's how it felt for me. Their goal was down to us losing the ball, and then the cover defence not doing its job properly, and the guy bobbled it in at the far post. So there was a large element of luck with that as well, and luck certainly didn't even itself out with the catastrophic miss by Che Adams at the other end, which is mind blowing. I mean, that's going to be in. I don't know if Danny Baker still makes compilation DVDs.
I don't think he does the DVDs at Christmas anymore.
Yeah, it's it would certainly be one that's on there to sort of like go up for a header and miss the ball and punch it in the net. I just thought it was kind of a scruffy finish. You see it the first time, you think, oh, okay, you sort of chested that in or something, and then the referee disallows it, and you see Che Adams' face, and you know that he knows straight away that he's knocked it in with his arm. So it is frustrating not to get anything out of it. It's particularly frustrating because Wolves really aren't all that. They're a little bit more attacking than they have been. Or they looked a little bit more attacking than they have been in previous years, played better football and stuff, but it's still annoying as hell to not get anything out of that game. And having got ahead of the curve, if you like, with the win against Chelsea, this was kind of even that up. So it would have been even to get a point would have been a very good result, but disappointing to get beat.
Yeah, I think, Steve, you said you'd be happy with 2 points at the end of the week. So, I mean, obviously, we'll get onto the Chelsea game later. But what did you make of yesterday? Just another opportunity to push on missed?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same sort of thing as Glen, really. It was, they were kind of there for the taking in many respects. And while, I mean, you look at the stats from the game, and basically it's two teams that are pretty mediocre in front of goal in terms of taking chances that come their way. 3 shots on target in the whole game, and I think both sides had a dozen shots. So yeah, that's a pretty pathetic conversion rate, really. And even their goal is, he could hit that finish again 100 times, and every other time the keeper throws his cap on it, it's that weaker finish. And I'm not quite sure how Bazunu's got himself sort of wrong-footed. I don't know whether he's maybe come one step too close to the near post, maybe, and his body weight's going the other way. But yeah, he's kind of been surprised by the weird bounce that Podence has put on it unintentionally, because it's basically come off his studs, hasn't it? I think. So yeah, frustrating defensively, but I thought we were all right in a game that never really came to life. But I mean, games between us rarely do. It's always a bit of a sort of war of attrition at times, especially the way that a lot of their players. I mean, you go and breathe near them, and they're down, writhing in agony, beating the turf as if someone's put 5 bullets in their back. So it can often be very stop-start when we play them, and yeah, I mean it kind of proved again, and we seem to struggle a little bit with the frustration of that. We don't seem to channel it very well. Kind of lack composure at times, which I guess is to be expected when you do have such a young team. But yeah, you'd like to think that over time we would iron that out, and it's not quite coming yet. But I mean, as I say, we were all right. We created enough to have got something out of that game. So it's, I think, file it under one of those games, as you say, 3 points from the 2 games when, as I said, I'd have taken two terrible draws. So we got 1 great win and 1 slightly irritating defeat.
Yeah.
So we're a point up on that. That's fine.
Mark's watching on YouTube. He says if you were a neutral, you'd been putting the kettle on a lot during that game yesterday.
I switched over.
We've got Jacob and Alfie both with us this week because there's so much to discuss. Jacob, I'll come to you first on this one. Were the players just disappointed? Was that the general sort of feel after the match yesterday, after the final whistle? Because they certainly gave it everything they could.
Yeah, they were, and you can't fault their bravery or their commitment. I think I asked Ralph the first question just to sum up the game, and he took 5 or 6 seconds to actually respond because he was as disappointed as anyone else. And I said last week about Elyounoussi, and he needs to be nastier. And I thought his decision making that first half, I don't want to go too much in on him or criticise him too heavily. I think he just set the tone. The way he turned down relatively straightforward passes to Adam Armstrong, to Che Adams. And he just played safe. And I think that just summed up the lack of incision throughout the afternoon, really. Southampton gave it everything. They threw caution to the wind for the last 35 minutes, really. Really brave on the front foot, but they just lacked that killer edge, really. And, of course, Che Adams, everyone's going to look at him and say he could have got an equaliser, but I was quite concerned that even in the last 15 minutes, they lost their way. And I would expect Southampton to create a lot more chances, given Wolves were sitting back and Southampton were the ones in the ascendancy. So, a lot of disappointment, really. I think it keeps coming back to that point of they lack a striker. But one good thing is that they are playing with a lot of cohesion. They do look like they understand the shape. I keep saying that. I think the 4-3-3 or however you want to say it, it works. And so there's a lot more positives taken out from this week than there are negatives.
Okay, I mean, you don't want to go in on Elyounoussi, but I think Glen will in a moment. so we'll get to that. Don't worry. You can just sit there and nod. Alfie, it was a tight game, wasn't it? And it could have gone either way, really. There wasn't a lot between the two sides, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to be particularly concerned about. I think all round it was probably a pretty miserable away day for everybody. We've sort of spoken about how Wolves isn't the most fun place to go. Me and Jacob had a nightmare trying to get there, trying to get back. I think it was one of those ones that you can just write off pretty quickly. That being said, there were positives. Fan Dabidozi or Samuel Edozie, I thought he came on and was a bright spark. I thought James Ward-Prowse had a good game. But yeah, the feeling was disappointment, frustrated. They missed a chance to get a point, but I think Steve and Glen have touched on it. Chelsea on Tuesday was so good that you were already up on what you expected from this week. I spoke to Mohamed Salisu after, and he sort of echoed those thoughts. He's somebody actually that I would mention. I thought he had a really good game, Mohamed Salisu. I think he's had a really good game 3 or 4 games in a row now. And I think that's somebody that Southampton really missed. When he was playing poorly, they were a shambles at the back. He started to play well, and he's got Bella-Kotchap next to him, yes, who was a good signing. But I think Salisu's the glue, the new firefighter, if you will, now that Jan Bednarek's gone to Villa.
To a bigger club, of course, as he said in his interview. Yeah, Glenn, do you want to talk about the number 10? So twice, like Elyounoussi, he had the ball with the dangerous areas, and he just took that extra touch. He's missing that killer pass, isn't he? And when Stuart Armstrong came on, you kind of felt a bit of a change in direction.
Absolutely. I mean, Stuart Armstrong was behind all of the better work in the second half. The chances for Adams both, I think, came with sort of heavy involvement from him, and he was brought down on the edge of the box for one, where Prowse hit the free kick into the wall. He made a huge difference. I don't know whether it's the starter and finisher thing that we sort of touched on a few weeks ago, where Ralph sees Elyounoussi as better at the start of a game because he holds his position more. And we're going to talk about the Chelsea game. Elyounoussi had a good game there, mainly without the ball, it has to be said. But yeah, my issue with him is that the same as I've said before, is that he's too slow to do things. He just doesn't quite seem to be at the pace of the game, and he's not the quickest over in a sprint race over 15-20 yards or whatever, but he also doesn't seem to be the quickest to release the ball, and that was a classic example in the first half yesterday, where by the time he got around to releasing the ball, Adams was desperately trying to stay onside, and then by the time he did release the ball, the angles had all changed, and the whole thing got snuffed out. So yeah, we still have issues at number 10. Adam Armstrong, again, great against Chelsea, but I thought he regressed a little bit in the game yesterday. But then the positive was Edozie coming on, who is another one that looks to have a crazy amount of talent and confidence in the same way that Romeo Lavia has. And we've got to talk about that. Lavia was mad. It was desperately missed in the game yesterday as well, because Diallo didn't really step up to provide anything like the same sort of dynamism in midfield. So, which probably explains why it was a little bit flat, along with who we were playing. So yeah, still issues at number 10. But I mean, what I took from the game yesterday is that Edozie's got a really good chance of making a name for himself there, because I know it's been mentioned, and I'm sure the boys are going to mention it later, about what the transfer window and stuff, and that he's not thought of as immediately in the first team. But I think he's got a really good chance, simply because that's the area of the team that seems to be a little bit less strong, shall we say, than all the others.
Steve, just on the game yesterday, were you surprised there weren't more changes given the Chelsea game on Tuesday night? Do you think some of the players looked a little bit leggy or towards the end?
Possibly, but then there's also the thought of where you reward the players that have played well and they keep their spot, and it's a meritocracy at the end of the day. So I wasn't hugely surprised, and also don't forget we'd had a day extra rest than Wolves, and with their relatively shallow squad, they were never going to be making wholesale changes themselves. So the fitness, the sort of fitness and stamina issue, probably shouldn't have been that much of a factor for us, I don't think. I think we look young enough and fit enough that actually playing three sort of intense games a week might not be too much of an issue for most of them.
Yeah, the only one I disagree with is Perrault, because he didn't have a pre-season, so I thought he looked like he was blowing a little bit in the second half in particular. But
yeah, I thought Gineppo might have started, just because he's demonstrated that he can play that position now. Seems to have worked out what it is he needs to do to be competent in that as an actual fullback as opposed to a wing back. And as you say, Perrault went off with cramp on Tuesday night, so he's obviously understandably not got 90 in him yet. So yeah, I kind of thought that Ralph might swap those two around, but obviously wasn't to be in the end.
And Jacob, I know you're one of his biggest fans. How much did we miss Lavia on Saturday? Because he's just been epic, hasn't he? And I know that you've been writing about this and waxing lyrical about him, and it really showed that he was missing already what a key player he could be.
Certainly, I think it's in both in and out of possession, because in possession, he's press resistant. He can get the ball. He can transfer the ball through the lines. And I think you saw in the first half an hour, Ibrahima Diallo got caught on the ball several times. Wolves continue to attack on transition, continue to counter attack, and Diallo's job in that role, he played a little bit deeper than he has in pre-season, because obviously Lavia's been in there, so he played a bit further forward. And the onus was on him to be the number 6 to stop those counter attacks, and I don't think he did, and that's why I don't feel Southampton ever really got control of the game. They never really had a sustained period of possession where they kept Wolves back. So I think it was a huge opportunity for Diallo, really, to cement that place, to keep Ainsley Maitland-Niles at bay, and he didn't do it. And I think it just showed that Romeo Lavia being injured, Oriol Romeo as well, obviously going to Girona. All of a sudden, Southampton look a little bit fragile in there if Maitland-Niles doesn't adapt quickly. So yeah, Romeo Lavia is a huge miss, and just hope he recovers quicker than the 6 weeks.
And Alfie, one of the criticisms of Ralph last year was the lack of subs, the lack of change in the formation. But yesterday, I think he made all 5 subs, and they all seem to make an impact. So he's willing to change things. He's willing to listen to the bench, and that could be key for us.
He is, yeah. And we speak about this every week. He made all 5 subs. He made 2 of them by 55 minutes, another 2 10, 15 minutes later. He tried 3 different formations, starting in this new 4-2-3-1 that they've been using the last couple of games. He then switched to, I think it was more of a 4-3-3 and then a 4-2-2 by the end of the game. And nothing seemed to work for him, in terms of the end product. But ultimately, I think the changes, they created chances, just not clear-cut enough ones. And, we know about a couple of clear-cut chances in terms of Che Adams, the crossbar and the handball. It could have all been so different. I think you have to credit Ralph and the coaches that they are agile, they are willing to change in game, and again, we say every week, we don't know who's in Ralph's ear, whether it is Ruben Sellers, who's now leading set pieces as well, so he's taken on his extra workload, and you can see him in the technical area. People love to see him in the technical area as well. Whenever you put anything out about that, people go crazy for it. They think he's the best signing of the summer, and maybe it proved to be true.
Glenn, I think you mentioned the set pieces last week, didn't you? You were talking about the set pieces and how we just look a bit more organised and a bit more of a threat this year.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, we had a bit of a mare against Leeds, didn't we? But I don't feel the same sense of horror that I did last year when we were defending free kicks that were taken from anywhere our side of the halfway line. We seemed to have one tactic last year, which was to line up, stand still, and hope to hell that someone was offside. We seem to have evolved a little bit there. It's down to having a better centre half pairing, basically, because they can both run, they can both jump, and they can both head the ball, and that just makes a huge difference. You've got two dominant players in there, which we haven't had for a long, long time. And we're going to get onto all the players that we've shipped out in a minute. So, but attacking wise, yeah, I mean, we saw it. What was the game? It was the Leicester game, wasn't it? With the long throw and Che Adams peeling off of Bella-Kotchap, wasn't it? That was obviously rehearsed. So yeah, so hopefully we can get a bit more from those. And yeah, we need Prowse to get back to the levels that he was last year with his.
Not happening at the moment, is it?
It's not quite happening at the moment.
Not even the corners.
Yeah, the corners have been a bit disappointing as well, considering, as I say, we've got those. Mind you, he did put over a really good one yesterday, and Bella-Kotchap, he's got to score that.
Fluffed a free header. 10
yards out, free header. For a guy who spends all day heading footballs, probably he's got to score. He's got to score that. That was poor. So, but that's the thing with being a creative player, isn't it? You can lay an assist on a plate, but if someone then misses it, you don't get the credit for it. So no, I don't think there's anything too much to worry about with Prowse. And you know with him that he'll work every day. He's got the right attitude. He'll work every day to try and put right whatever's slightly out.